Episode 3. The Lady with the Lamp and the Poison Cabinet. Welcome to Pete's World of Poisonous Plants. You're watching Battlefield Medicine, the real angels of war. In this series we honor the nurses who braved the blood and chaos of war, armed with courage, compassion and, yes, the poisons of nature. So far we've seen the Greeks and Romans knock soldiers out with toxic sponges, and medieval monks and nuns risk their souls with mandrake and belladonna. Now we step into the 19th century and meet perhaps the most famous nurse of them all, Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp. But behind the soft glow of her lamp lay a grim reality. Florence Nightingale fought not only against wounds and disease, but also against filth, bureaucracy and prejudice. And when she did treat the wounded, she relied on a poison cabinet as much as on her brush and mop. Florence Nightingale was born in 1820 in Florence, Italy, hence her name. She grew up in a wealthy English family, expected to marry well and host tea parties, not muck about in hospitals. But Florence was different. She felt a calling, a divine sense that her life's work was to care for the sick. Against her family's wishes, she trained as a nurse in Germany, studying both the practical and spiritual aspects of healing. By the time war broke out in Crimea in 1853, Nightingale was already making a name for herself in nursing circles. Reports of horrific conditions in military hospitals reached London. Soldiers lying in filth, wounded men rotting from infection, more dying from disease than from bullets. Florence Nightingale was asked to lead a team of 38 nurses to the front. It was the chance of a lifetime, and the test of her courage. What she found in the Crimean War was hell. Soldiers crammed into wards with open wounds, rats scuttling across the floors, sewage leaking into drinking water, the stench of gangrene, the moans of the dying. It was a charnel house. For every one man killed in battle, 7 died from disease, and yet in the middle of this chaos, Nightingale and her nurses set to work. First, cleanliness. Florence believed that fresh air, clean water and scrubbing floors could save more lives than any medicine. She ordered windows opened, drains cleared, sheets boiled and rags burned. She had the wards scrubbed daily, often by candlelight. And she was right. Mortality rates dropped dramatically, in some hospitals from over 40% to just 2%. Cleanliness saved thousands of lives, long before antibiotics were even a dream. But when it came to pain, she had little choice but to reach for poisons. The opium poppy was her strongest ally. In the form of laudanum, a tincture of opium in alcohol, it was given to soldiers writhing in agony. Just a few drops in wine or brandy could muffle screams and grant a brief blessed sleep. But opium was no gentle cure. It left soldiers confused, weak and often dependent. For many, surviving the battlefield meant fighting a new battle against addiction. Another medicine in the nurse's arsenal was Digitalis, from the foxglove plant. In the right dose, it steadied failing hearts. In the wrong dose, it stopped them cold. Nurses had to count out drops by lamplight, knowing that a trembling hand could mean sudden death. And then there was willow bark, steeped into bitter teas to fight fevers and inflammation. Willow contains salicin, the ancestor of modern aspirin. In an age of dysentery, typhus and cholera, it was one of the few remedies that truly worked. So imagine it. The dim glow of Florence's lamp passing down the ward, rows of broken men staring up with hollow eyes. In one hand, she carried fresh bandages and boiled water. In the other, her nurses carried bottles of laudanum, digitalis and willow bark teas. Life and death measured out in drops, spoonfuls and whispered prayers. But Florence Nightingale was more than just a battlefield nurse. She was a reformer. She gathered data, she wrote reports. She proved with statistics that clean hospitals saved lives. She used numbers as well as compassion to change minds back home. Her work revolutionized nursing, turning it into a respected profession rather than a last resort for the desperate. Her nickname, the Lady with the Lamp, came from soldiers themselves who saw her walking the wards late at night, lamp in hand, checking on each patient. To them she was an angel in the darkness, but she was no saintly figure floating on clouds. She was a hard, relentless fighter, battling filth, bureaucracy and skepticism as fiercely as any general fought on the field. And she paid her own price. Florence herself fell ill during the war, suffering for much of her later life with chronic pain and exhaustion. Yet she never stopped campaigning for better hospitals, better training, and better care. Her legacy is immense. Modern nursing owes its existence to her reforms. Clean wards, trained nurses, sanitary practices, all of it can be traced back to the lady with the lamp. And in every syringe of morphine, every aspirin pill, every Digitalis tablet, we see the legacy of those poisonous plants she and her nurses carried into the Crimean nightmare. Florence Nightingale is remembered as a saintly figure, but in truth she was something far rarer, a woman who stood in the filth and horror of war, unflinching, armed with soap, compassion and poison, and proved that one nurse could change the world. This has been episode 3 of Battlefield Medicine, The Real Angels of War. In our next episode, we'll march into the trenches of World War I, where nurses faced mud, gas, and endless waves of shattered men, armed with morphine kits and atropine syringes. If you found this glimpse into history's darker corners worth your time, give the video a like and subscribe to Pete's World of Poisonous Plants. And remember, just because it grows in the ground doesn't mean it won't put you under it.